Hey, what's going on? I want to talk about The Last of Us Part 2 some more after my last video on Part 1. It's kind of going over whether this game was really good or not in terms of the story, because that's what everyone had an issue with when it came out. The main thing I want to talk about here is whether Joel's death was warranted or not, whether he should have died, because for the longest time that's been my issue with this game. It wasn't really Abby or, the whole inclusive narrative thing with the LGBT community. It wasn't any of that. The main thing was always Joel's death. It wasn't even that Abby got spared in the end. That wasn't a big problem. It's just the fact that the game was like mostly consisting of characters other than Joel. When the first one, Joel was literally the main guy and he had all the screen time. So that's what I'm going to go over right here. Now, the first thing that I'm going to say is that the marketing in this game really did, make you think Joel was going to be, all over the place, because they fabricated scenes, they changed out his outfits and made it seem like he'd be in the future when those were really the flashback scenes. And that was kind of messed up, but, you can see why they did it, because they didn't want to, because if they didn't have those scenes, we would have figured out the game immediately. So, it's kind of a difficult moral dilemma if that was justified or not. I'm not going to get too far into that one. But yeah, this game is a massive departure from the first game. The story is just so different. In the first game, it was kind of like a Western, you were on this road trip, you were going across the America to try and find a cure for the disease. Yeah, Joel and Ellie bonding together the whole time, because they just met. It was kind of Joel's, process of becoming whole again after he lost Sarah. And that was really cool. And, the thing is, they kind of foxholed themselves in with the ending of the first game, because you got Joel and Ellie in this safe settlement, Jackson. And, it's kind of like the Walking Dead TV show with that, because there's either you can do something crazy with the story, or you can just have them get kicked out of their settlement by an attack and then find some other settlement, and that's what the Walking Dead show does, and it gets really boring. I don't think anyone wanted to see them make 3 or 4 Last of Us games where that was the case. That was kind of the thing with the Walking Dead game series too. Clementine was kind of just going from base to base. And I mean, there was a good amount of change happening, but there wasn't really any, permanent solution. It was kind of just constantly going to another area. And I do like how Jackson is actually a permanent solution in this game. Another thing I wanted to say is that the flashbacks in this game, what we did get of Joel was really good. And that is definitely worth mentioning, that they did respect him in that sense. We got a lot of great scenes with him, with the birthday and the kind of the shuttle launch when you were in the museum. God, I'm stuttering too much. But yeah, those are, great scenes, and you got to play with Joel a little, fighting some infected in the next flashback. They had him in the ending a bit, they had him in the opening. He actually did everything he actually promised he was gonna do. He taught Ellie to swim, he taught her guitar, he sang for her. So that's definitely, they remembered everything about the first game. It's not like they just did something completely different. They did respect the first game in that regard. It's just they took such a crazy decision with killing Joel off that kind of gets me still. And, the question is could Joel's character have gone anywhere? Because there are characters in games that, like Uncharted, where Nathan Drake his character is constantly going and evolving for 4 games. He's not going through massive arcs or anything, but he's just having more adventures each and every game. And it's good to see him for that many games. I'm glad we had 4 Uncharteds with Nathan Drake. But maybe that's just not the case with this game, because, at the end, like I said, they kind of forced themselves into a hole at the end of the first game, because Joel, completed his story. If they were going to do anything else with his character, it you know, it'd be kind of hard to judge. It's hard to say, really. I think the most that they really could have done is had Dina die at the beginning, and then Joel kind of comes with you, and then you have that fight over the lie, and then they kind of make up over the course of the game. But, you know, that wouldn't have been, like, a crazy story. It would have been just kind of, you know, so-so, kind of eh. So, you know, you can see why they went the direction they did. The fact of the matter is either Joel was going to die or the game was going to be a pretty predictable and, you know, relatively simple story, which the first game wasn't at all, and I don't think they wanted to follow it up like that. So I think I've pretty much come to terms with their decision. I'm pretty sure this was the right call. With Joel dying, I don't know, leave your comment below if you feel any differently. But yeah, this game definitely does have a great gameplay, great graphics, great soundtrack. And the story is really wildly crazy, even though it may not be the most satisfying thing ever. There's a lot of cool scenes and stuff in it, but it's not necessarily a situation where they win. It's kind of like the Titanic, where it's a tragedy. But it's, you know, it does its job. It's interesting, it's thought-provoking, and that's why I still would think it's a masterpiece. Better than the first game? Maybe not. Maybe about equal. Like I said, the first game had a better story. There is no way you were going to beat it, but this story was as good as it could have been, given the follow-up to the first. And so I definitely respect that. They took a lot of risks, and they didn't just play it safe like The Walking Dead does, and like Uncharted kind of did for the first 4 games. But yeah, that's about it. I'll see you next time. Peace out.